Now I'm going to chat about stitch plates, which are these little things, and with my sewing machine they are very easy to take on and off. I'm going to talk initially about a 5.5mm sewing machine, and that is the spacing, the width of the feed dogs. The feed dogs are the little teeth that are underneath the foot that walk the fabric through the sewing machine. Now this machine has 5.5mm feed dogs, and so the hole in the stitch plate, the maximum width is 5.5mm. So if you want to do zigzag buttonholes, something like that, the widest you can make that stitch is 5.5mm. And the stitch plate that comes with your sewing machine is exactly that, and it has this long hole so that the needle can throw from side to side. It's very useful, but sometimes what is called either a straight stitch plate or a fine fabric stitch plate is useful, and instead of having the long hole that allows for the left and right movement of the needle, it just has a small round hole and can only be used for straight stitch. I use it all the time when I'm doing straight stitch. If I'm doing straight stitch, the straight stitch plate or the fine fabric stitch plate is on the sewing machine. What it does is it controls the work more as it goes through the sewing machine. It stops the work getting pushed down that hole. It's called flagging, and sometimes the needle pushes the work down the hole and pulls it as it comes up. It also helps to prevent bird's nest, which are those little chewy bits of thread that you get at the start of a seam. And when you get to the end of a seam, sometimes you'll find that you don't have control and the seam becomes narrower at the end and swings off and doesn't maintain an equal width all the way down to the end. And just having the work held more firmly with the straight stitch plate will help that. So I am alternating between my straight stitch plate and my regular stitch plate depending on the actual task I'm doing with the sewing machine. I'm going to show you how those come on and off when we move over to the sewing machine. Now, some of you will have a sewing machine that has a 9mm stitch plate and 9mm feed dogs. And so those little teeth that are underneath the foot that walk the fabric through are wider, and the hole that the needle goes down into in the stitch plate is wider, and you can do zigzag, buttonhole, satin stitch, decorative stitches up to 9mm wide. That's 3/8 of an inch, so it's much wider than the 5.5mm. And I have a machine like that. I tend to use that for more decorative work rather than actual garment making, but some of you will only have one machine, and what I'm going to suggest to you is you have a look at the stitch plates that are available to you. All being well, you will of course have the one that comes with the machine, which has the 9mm hole in it, but you should be able to get a straight stitch plate for the majority of machines, and I absolutely recommend that because there's more play of the work going through the sewing machine the wider the hole is with that 9mm than there is with the 5mm. So the straight stitch plate is really going to help you with your accuracy for all the reasons that I've just said. But for my 9mm sewing machine, I also have a 5.5mm stitch plate. So if I was making a very sheer, very delicate blouse and I wanted to make a very narrow little buttonhole, say using a silk thread, so it was a beautiful fine finish, my buttonhole is going to be much neater and have much more control through the sewing machine if I make that skinny little buttonhole using the 5.5mm stitch plate rather than using the 9mm, because there's going to be that play and that pushing down on the 9mm stitch plate that there isn't going to be on the 5.5mm stitch plate. So these are all little things that I'm not asking you to rush out and buy now, but I'm giving you information to think about. But I cannot stitch. I can tell when I haven't got my straight stitch plate on. It makes a huge difference. It is a wonderful investment. So that is what I want to say on choosing and why you would choose different stitch plates. The actual changing of them I'll show you when we move over to the sewing machine.